Hello and welcome to today's Computer Side Chat, where our topic is all about politics, specifically political socialization and political ideologies. Now, before we get into what those two things mean, I want to go ahead and define politics for us. And politics, very simply, is the debate between people or groups over how a country should be governed. So it's the back and forth of ideas, of policies, of decisions over how the government in the United States should be run. So with that understood, let's go ahead and jump into things. Alright, so first, let's talk about political socialization. And before we dive into that, let's go ahead and give ourselves a definition or understanding of what that term means. Political socialization is the factors and influences by which people acquire political ideas or beliefs. So it's the things that shape who you are politically, what political party you're in, what ideas you have or beliefs that you have in terms of politics. It is all about the influences that shape those ideas. And there are 5 main influences when we talk about shaping your political beliefs. The first is family. The political beliefs that you're exposed to by either your parents or your siblings or your extended family. That tends to be the earliest and probably most important factor in influencing what you believe in terms of how government should be run or what government should do. Second is friends and social group. So, whatever your friends believe tends to also influence you. If you are in a social group, that can also influence you. So, for example, if you're in a church group, the ideas you're exposed to and the beliefs you're exposed to in that church group can often influence your own political beliefs. So, for example, if you're in a church group that is against abortion, well, then you might start to lean to more the Republican or conservative side. We'll get into what those terms mean later. But that side of the aisle tends to be against abortion. So, those social groups outside of your family tend to influence your political beliefs as well. Your socioeconomic status. When we say socioeconomic status, we're talking about the amount of wealth you have. So if you're poor, middle class, or rich. Well, depending on where you are in that socioeconomic spectrum, that can influence which parties you support. If you're a wealthy person and you feel that one political ideology or one political party serves you better than the other, you might side with that political idea or belief. So the amount of wealth you have can influence your political beliefs. Fourth, media. The news and entertainment you're exposed to. Those things can also have an influence on your politics. And lastly, your education. Both your level of education, so are you someone with just a high school degree or are you someone with your PhD, but also what your education is based around. What your education looks like. Both of those things can factor what you believe politically. So you take all those influences and you put them together, and that is what helps shape either the group that you're a part of or the country as a whole. It shapes their political culture. And a political culture is a set of attitudes and practices held by a group or entire nation of people that shapes their political behavior. So, political socialization is the influences or factors that help build your political beliefs. We talked about what those 5 influences are, and it's the influences on a group or on the country as a whole that helps to build our political culture. So now that we've talked about political socialization and what influences your political beliefs, let's talk about what those political beliefs actually look like. This is known as your political ideology, and that's just simply a set of beliefs that someone has on political, economic, social, and cultural affairs within their country. So in other words, if you have an opinion on abortion, whether that's you want it to be legal or you want it to be illegal, that's part of your political ideology. It helps shape your ideas and your beliefs on what government should do. Now, when we talk about ideology, we have several ways of showing that visually to make it easier to understand. The first thing we're going to talk about in terms of that visual representation is the political compass. And this is just a visual representation of the role you think government should play in your country. You can see it here on the left, and it looks like a graph with an X and Y axis. So let's talk about those axes, and then we'll get into what they actually mean. So first off, let's look at the x-axis, going from left to right. The x-axis represents how involved you think government should be in the economy. All the way to the left, you have communism, or the belief that government should totally control the economy and economic decisions. To the right, if we went all the way to the end, is what is called the free market, or that you think government should have absolutely no involvement in the economy. Everything should be left up to the consumers and to companies. So if we were to place you on the x-axis, basically, you would take a quiz. And that quiz we actually will probably take in class. And the more control you think government should have in the economy, the more you are to the left. The less control that you think government should have over the economy, the more you are to the right. So for example, if you think that government should place regulations on companies to protect the environment, that would put you heading towards the left. If you believe that government should not put regulations on companies to try and protect the environment, that would take you more to the right. Let's look at the y-axis. The y-axis represents how involved you think government should be in the social decisions that people make. So again, an example of this would be the abortion example I used earlier. Towards the top is authoritarian. Basically, that means you think government should have more control. Towards the bottom is libertarian. That means government should have less say or less control of your life. So if we were to go back to that abortion example, if you said, yes, government should be able to tell people they cannot get an abortion, you would be closer to the top. That means government should have more control over the decisions that people make. If you believe that no, whether you get to have an abortion or not should be up to an individual, you would go closer to the bottom. You think government should have less control over the decisions that people make. So as you answer questions and as your beliefs form, that kind of moves the dot that would represent you on the graph all over the place. And so we can see the final product here, represented with certain historical figures. So let's look up in the top left-hand corner. You can see Joseph Stalin. Stalin was a communist. He believed that government should have total control of the economy, and he was an authoritarian. In other words, he was a dictator that had total control. So you can see that he's close to the top and close to the left-hand side. Those are the political ideas that he had, and thus that's where he aligns on the chart. Counter to that might be someone like Ayn Rand, who is a famous author who wrote a lot about economics. She believes in a complete lack of government control. One, she believes in libertarianism, that government should have no say in your social life or what you do behind closed doors. But she also believed that the economy should be totally free of government control. So she's very far to the right. So you can see her down in the bottom right-hand corner. And so if we were to have you take the quiz, evaluating your political beliefs, you would be placed somewhere on this compass. So now that we've talked about the compass, let's move into a simpler, more popular version of visualizing your political beliefs. And this is known as the political spectrum. Now, I already said this is a simpler version of the political compass, and the thing you need to know about this is that it is essentially an x-axis, as you can see here at the bottom. It is only one line, so you can only be to the left or to the right. The political spectrum basically states that the further you are to the left, the more liberal you are. The further you are to the right, the more conservative you are. So let's talk about what those terms actually mean. And let's start off by talking about liberals. So, if you are a liberal, you are someone that believes in reform and change, especially in the interest of social justice. So you think government should be active. It should be constantly changing, and it should be constantly passing new laws that help people. When we talk about in the interest of social justice, that basically means that government should be doing things to help people that are in need. Furthermore, liberals believe that the purpose of government is to protect the people, and thus it should be expanded when that can be accomplished. So when government can better protect its citizens. So liberals don't necessarily believe that government should be small or should be gigantic. They just believe that government should be expanded when it is in the best interest of protecting people, no matter what that might be protecting them from. So that is what liberals believe. And I just want to give you the general definitions of these things for now, because as we jump into individual issues, I want you to kind of unpack more and more what you believe the term liberal or the term conservative means in depth. So let's move on to conservatives. If you're a conservative, that means you're someone that relies and believes in traditional values and traditional institutions of government. So this might be the if it isn't broke, don't fix it mentality. Furthermore, conservatives believe that policies and beliefs focus on the idea that government should be limited and that government should be small. Basically, the less government in people's lives, the better off they are, because the more free they are. So government shouldn't be able to regulate your speech. Your speech should be free. That's an example of a conservative ideal. You should be able to say and do the things that say and believe the things that you want, because that is a personal freedom that should be given to you. And again, that goes back to our natural rights discussion from John Locke. So that's the basis of conservative ideals. Doesn't necessarily want change and reform within government. Stick to the traditional beliefs and institutions that have helped our government work in the past. And furthermore, keep government as small as possible. Keep government out of people's lives and out of the economy. Next, we have what are called moderates, and this is in the middle of the political spectrum. So a moderate is someone that has some liberal beliefs and some conservative beliefs. So you might believe in total freedom of speech. You should not have your freedom of speech regulated. That might be a smaller government ideal. Whereas you might also have a liberal ideology that the government should place environmental protections on companies. So they should have to do certain things to protect the environment. That's a liberal belief. So you share different beliefs from different sides of the spectrum. That puts you in the middle. That makes you a moderate. Lastly are radicals and extremists, and these are people that have drastic political beliefs. So something like communism or fascism. So these are the people that are on the extreme of one end or the other. Tend to be very much for government control, very much for economic control. Government should make all the decisions for the people. People should not have a say. And so that's what radicals or extremists are. And they're at the very polar ends of the political spectrum. All the way to the left would be communism, and all the way to the right would be fascism. So your beliefs, you put them all together, and it places you on this spectrum. When you hear someone say that, oh, that guy is to the right, that tends to mean that they're conservative. When you hear someone referred to as being on the left, that means they're a liberal. So that's a basic breakdown of what these political ideologies are. And we're going to focus more on liberalism and conservatism in class these coming few days and try to unbox where you fall on the spectrum. Where are you in terms of the ideology battle? Are you a liberal? Do you believe in government reform and government activity to help protect people? Are you a conservative? Do you believe in limited government? Government that sticks to its traditional institutions, that shouldn't change very much and should get out of the way. Let people be free. Or are you in the middle somewhere? So that's going to be the main focus in the coming days, is figuring out where you lie. So from here, make sure you finish your notes, and then I want you to go to Schoology and take the quizzes on this set of flip notes. Have a great night, and I will talk to you guys in class.